The rune system in Season of Discovery has proven to be a resounding success. Blending the ideas of some changes and World of Warcraft Classic has created something new that players seem to absolutely love. But there's still quite a few flaws in the game, and some of those could actually easily be dealt with by runes themselves. And what I'm talking about today are more of quality of life runes that should be added in the future of the game. Things that will make your class so much more enjoyable to play. Because we all know there's something about each and every class that can just be extremely frustrating. And whenever you complain about it, someone's just telling you, well, it's classic World of Warcraft, get over it. Of course, Paladins need to buff every individual person every 5 minutes. But that doesn't need to be the case. In the coming phases, there could be one slot for runes, something like a necklace slot that is a quality of life rune for every class. This is the easiest way to deal with some of the most frustrating things of each class. And with that being said, let's break down what I think are the best quality of life runes that could be added for every single class in World of Warcraft Classic Season of Discovery. Starting with the big fat elephant-shaped Illidan in the room, we have the Warlocks. Every Warlock in Classic knows the frustration of having to give out health stones. And if you don't, it's probably because you literally just don't do it. Level 25 content isn't hard enough for us to need to give every player in the raid a health stone. But as we move forward towards harder content at level 40 with the Gnomergan raid, and eventually 40-man raids in Season of Discovery, we're going to need to be handing out healthstones. And creating them one by one while only being able to ever carry one at a time is something that's a little bit more of an antiquated system. Well, let me introduce you to the Soul Well, a casted spell that allows you to place down one object that every player in the raid can just click to give themselves a soul stone. This only requires you spending one soul shard, so you can save the rest to either increase your DPS as a Destro lock or use them for your soul stones. But no longer will you have to consistently sit there and handcraft and trade individual health stones to every player in your raid. And while we're on the topic of handing out consumables to the raid, your average vendor machine has to do the exact same thing. Mages need to consistently create water, which is going to be even more frustrating at level 40 because mages just learn a new rank of water. And this means they will only be able to create 2 waters at a time. Imagine trading these out to every healer or every caster. If you're gonna be a vending machine, then why not allow the vending machine to work autonomously? And by that, of course, I mean the mage table, another one of the easiest spells to be added to the game that doesn't actually detract from the gameplay of World of Warcraft Classic. Of course, there's an argument to be made that there is a social aspect of having to trade water to each individual person in your raid, but that social aspect is not really a fun one, and it's really time consuming and honestly just kind of holds you back. So this doesn't actually hurt the gameplay at all, but it only makes things a little bit more efficient. And over on the Alliance side is the class that actually inspired me to start thinking about this. Of course, that is the Heroes of the Light, the Paladins. Paladins have to bless all of their party members individually, and those blessings only last for 5 minutes. Have you ever been in a pug raid where you don't have Blessing of Might on for basically the entire raid? Well, that's because they might bless you at the very beginning of a raid or instance, but it's very taxing and honestly pretty annoying for them to consistently keep these buffs up. And this is only going to get worse as the content becomes harder. Now, I know we do eventually get greater blessings in Classic World of Warcraft, but even then you need to consistently re-bless everyone in your raid to make sure that these buffs are up at all times. This is the major upside of being an Alliance player, is having something like Blessing of Wisdom or Might. And if Paladins just got one rune that was a quality of life rune that gave them greater blessings that resembled something like Wrath of the Lich King, allowing you to bless one person of each class, and everyone of that class gets that blessing for 30 minutes. It doesn't even have to be an entire hour. 30 minutes would be so nice, and it would make Paladin buffing a lot less taxing. And on the flip side, the Horde counterpart to Paladins is of course the Shaman. One thing you probably haven't noticed just yet, but will absolutely start happening as you move forward in harder raids, is that you might skip a little bit of trash, and all of a sudden you realize all of the packs you just ran directly by are coming in to destroy your raid. That's because the shamans forgot to place a brand new totem, picking up the one that they left all the way back there in Narnia. There is no way to just instantly recall your totems back to yourself as you move forward in classic World of Warcraft. And this spell is perfectly introduced in later versions of the game, known as Totemic Recall. This combos with a shaman's ability to potentially put every totem down at one time, so have an assigned group of totems and drop them all at one instance, instead of having your first 4 globals be placing totems, and then as you are moving throughout a raid, dungeon, or even just leveling, you can use Totemic Recall to bring them all back to yourself and maybe regain a little bit of the mana originally spent putting the totems down. But you might be thinking, Sarthe, what about rogues? They're an absolutely perfect class in World of Warcraft Classic. Well, they still have one thing that I think every rogue is asking for, and that's to retain combo points whenever you change targets. Not to keep the same amount of combo points on the next target. That would be an absolute DPS increase. That is not quality of life. But every rogue in Classic knows the qualms of having to kick a heal and losing all of your combo points on the main target. This isn't something that necessarily is good gameplay. It was actually taken away in later forms of the game. And this might be the largest quality of life increase for any of the classes that could result in a PvE difference. And that's because a lot of rogues in Classic will actually just choose not to kick a heal and rather let it go instead of losing all of their combo points on their main target. And this only gets worse in the level 40 bracket as we also get Blind. Blind and Kick are both abilities that you can use on a new target to CC them a little bit, and we're gonna have a lot of heals in future raids that need to be interrupted. And if you want to mouse over kick that and not lose all 5 of your combo points, then this is something that I think that rogue should get. Now again, I do realize that this is probably more than a quality of life increase. This is probably the biggest one on the list so far. So if you have better suggestions for rogues, definitely let me know in the comments. Priests are by far the most necessary healers right now in the game. They are so incredibly strong that they could heal you from 10% HP to full in literally 1 global. But there's 2 things about priests that the community seems to dislike the most. These options were presented to me by the community, and the first one is, well, have you ever realized that every single time you need to buff someone in your party to give them extra stamina, it takes almost a third of your mana? Meaning that if you want to buff your entire raid, you'll have to sit down and drink to full at least 3 full times, and then drink to full again to even get started. Well, that doesn't seem to make any sense, and why is Power Word Fortitude so much more mana expensive than everything else in the game? Instead, you can do what you do in later forms of the game and have that buff be placed on everyone in the entire party, or potentially everyone in the entire raid. Now, I do understand that again might take away from a little bit of the classic feel, so having it buff everyone in that party seems like a lot better of an option than anything else. And I take back what I said about rogues. This second one for priest that was suggested by you guys is the most busted one. And that is to have a priest be able to use 1 spell to resurrect every single player in the raid. All of a sudden, you have the ultimate of mercy in Season 1 of Overwatch. Mass Resurrection would be a complete wipe deterrent within raids. You would just give a soul stone to your priest and they could instantly res everyone. This is a massive quality of life update, but I genuinely don't even think this is in, it's not even in until Cataclysm or later. I don't even know. So this one is kind of too OP, and Priest might be a little bit too OP already, but this is the one that was suggested by you guys. And while we're on the topic of buffs, let's talk about the most powerful class in all of World of Warcraft Classic. That is, of course, the Warrior. Warriors are by far the strongest DPS class in the game, and they probably will be as they move forward through level 40, 50, and 60. Their runes probably need to get toned down a little bit in the later phases, but Warriors do have one consistent flaw that could just be mitigated by adding a nice little quality of life rune. And that is essentially to extend the duration of Battle Shout. Now I know Battle Shout can be used consistently, it's very easy to keep up as long as you have a weak aura for it. But Battle Shout is of course giving yourself and your party extra attack power for only 2 minutes. And I have to tell you guys, most warriors that you meet in Pugs, unless they are in your guild and very good warriors, generally they will let Battle Shout drop. And don't take that to heart. That's not a jab towards a lot of warrior players. Literally, just very often you will see Battle Shout is not up. A lot of players playing Season of Discovery are newer to the game, and consistently paying attention to a 2-minute buff that you need to keep up is something that newer players generally tend to overlook. So extending the duration of Battle Shout is an easy quality of life thing that you can do that won't necessarily increase their DPS unless a fight was going to last longer than 2 minutes, because warriors should be pre-battle shouting every fight anyways before they even really stack themselves up with rage. I can guarantee you have been in groups where you don't have Battle Shout up for most of a fight, and this is just one of the easy ways to make warriors a little bit more accessible to everyone that wants to play the class. And every group with a Druid healer knows the pain of literally not being able to actually cast a res. That's because Druid healers only get battle res in classic World of Warcraft. But now with Season of Discovery runes like Wild Growth, Druids are actually fully fledged healers, even probably the second best healers in the entire game behind Priests. And Druids can only use their battle res once every 30 minutes, meaning it's not really effective at all if the Druid is your only healer. If you have more than one death in a dungeon, say goodbye and get to walking back. Instead, it would be amazing if Druid healers actually got a real resurrect like Revive. This would just fill out that missing slot that Druids really are missing. Although that does mean the Druid's quality of life rune is only going to the healing specialization, so there might be some other ones that you guys might want to suggest for the other 2 specs. And last but not least, we have the class that is consistently hit with the nerf hammer. That is, of course, the Wind Serpent with their beautiful pet, the Hunter. And as we look forward to phase 2, our main class, the pet, is going to get even stronger with Bestial Wrath, a 50% damage increase. If you thought pets were strong already, beware of red pets as they run towards you in open world or STV next phase. But there's one thing that hunters are really missing out on, and that's the ability to change their pets at will. You have to go all the way back to a rested area, find a stable master, and then change your pet, which is only limited to 3 pets total anyways. This is again an antiquated way of playing the game. Being able to change your pet for different situations can be extremely clutch for hunters. It is something that I do believe is classic-like. It does feel very classic to have to traverse the world to be able to change your pets. It makes you feel like you're in the world very strongly. But I also understand the frustration of players when they want to maybe tank some higher level elites or want to switch over to PvPing and need to switch their pets out at will. So the rune that would mitigate this is called Call Stable Pet. It is an ability that would allow you to pick your pets out of the stables while you are out in the open world. This allows the hunter to have some sort of versatility. Instead of being stuck with one Wind Serpent for the entire raid, you can pull out your cat or raptor, or next phase you can pull out something like a gorilla. And I had a ton of hunters ping me and say what they want as a quality of life change would be in combat traps or no dead zone. And I would love both of those. I would love melee weaving without a real dead zone, but that would absolutely be busted in PvP. And in combat traps, while I don't really think that's too much DPS in the raid, again, this would be extremely powerful in PvP. Next phase, you will be able to drop traps in fights using Feigned Death and Scattershot, but that is kind of the classic workaround. I think in combat traps constitute a little bit more than a quality of life rune slot because they would actually increase your viability in certain situations. But I'm also curious what you would like to see added for your class. And again, I'm not talking something like Demonic Gateway Crix. I'm not talking something like Heroic Leap. These things are meta-defining abilities and so much more than a quality of life change. But even then, I would like to see what everyone expects some of the runes to be coming in the future. So definitely let me know in the comments, and I will make sure to keep you guys always updated on everything Season of Discovery. So like and subscribe to the page on our way towards 100K. That's my dance. All right, I'll see you guys all on the next one.